first and foremost, don't listen to what Steven has to say about Arby's. Does he look at that guy?
It's not even going to be in the same video.
Listen, look at that
This
man.
is a separate video.
Does he look like a man who's ever had a beef and cheddar? He definitely couldn't handle the horsey sauce. Come on. Okay. So a little while ago, we all posted like our top 25, I think it was, games of all time just for us personally. They were just the games, like the 25 games that when I originally played them kind of had the biggest impact on me and kind of blew me away the most when I originally played them. A lot of them I haven't gone back to play today to see how well they hold up or anything like that. But that's kind of the approach that I had on it. Kind of picked at random. This is not like my top 5, but these are 5 games from the 25 to just kind of talk about and give a little more context with. Mr. Pandaria from World of Warcraft. I think Mr. Pandaria is not one of the more popular World of Warcraft expansions, but for me, I didn't start playing World of Warcraft until Cataclysm, but I barely just kind of casually played it. It wasn't until Mr. Pandaria that I got into raiding and really got into World of Warcraft, playing tons and tons and tons of hours and trying to do progression raiding, and joined a guild where we, had weekly or twice weekly raid nights, and it was amazing. Loved it. It's raiding in World of Warcraft during Mr. Pandaria is an absolute top tier video gaming experience for me. Nothing else like it. It's amazing working together, figuring out teams to be like, this set of people are going to handle this task, and when this happens, this group of people is going to go and do this. Coordinating it all, working together, feeling like you really made something happen together, bring down a big boss was incredible. While everyone's in voice chat and everything. Just an awesome experience. And I think the boss designs in the Siege of Orgrimmar raid were extremely good. The battle mechanics were extremely good compared to a lot of the other ones that I've done since then. I just think every single fight in that raid was very well made. So, great expansion. I really like Pandaria. I think it was really pretty. All the colorful leaves and everything on the trees. Just a really colorful, beautiful expansion. So that's my most significant World of Warcraft expansion. And a very important game for me. Still have friends that I made from back then that I still talk to today. If you've never raided in World of Warcraft, I highly recommend trying it. It's really amazing. Even still. So another one that I had on there was the original Metal Gear for the PS1. So I think the original PlayStation kind of did a lot to change the face of gaming in general. It just shifted the tone and the attitude towards video games, I think. Before that, with like this NES and the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, the Atari, all these things. I mean, Atari, kind of people wrote it off kind of as a fad, and then after that, all the games were kind of viewed as for kids. The NES, the Genesis, Super Nintendo, people kind of viewed it as something for kids to do. But when the PS1 came out, I think it changed public perspective. With games like Metal Gear and Final Fantasy VII, it felt like these weren't games for kids. They were just like going to see a blockbuster movie at the movie theater. And one of the ways that I think of it is like with Sega Genesis, it was cool for like preteens, like 12, 13-year-olds. They kind of tried to play up that little edgy role of the NES is for kids, and we're for like, it kind of catered to the like preteen and teenage crowd. But with the PS1, it felt like it was taking it to a next level where they were like, well, we see what you're doing there, Sega, but if you want to get a PS1, you need a driver's license. So I think it changed a lot. And Metal Gear was one of the biggest reasons for that back then. The writing was really good. The characters were just extremely well developed. The combat mechanics were awesome. Sneaking around stealthily. I mean, it felt like you were playing a movie. Some of the deaths of some of the bosses in that game just really hit really hard, where it wasn't just like a simple faceless bad guy enemy that's purely evil. Their motivations made sense. They were a lot more complicated, complex characters. It felt like you were watching a movie like Braveheart or something, you know? So I think that one was really, really huge for me as well. Definitely changed my perspective on gaming. Parasite Eve was another one that kind of changed me a lot back then. It was kind of like a sci-fi horror type of a game that mixed Resident Evil with Final Fantasy, and it had enough of like a scientific realism in it that it kind of scared me as a kid, because I don't know if you've ever played this game, but there's these mitochondria, which are in every cell in your body, play a major part in the transformations that happen to all the monsters in the game. And as a kid looking into that, it seems so believable. I was like, wow, this like seems like borderline that it could really happen in real life. And it freaked the hell out of me as a kid. I loved that game. And the opening scene where they're at the opera and the Parasite Eve like lady just starts singing and everyone in the audience starts bursting into flames. It was so amazing. And I'm actually hoping to play through the game all the way, hopefully this Christmas. So hopefully I'll do that, because it happens on Christmas Day, the beginning of the game anyway. Baldur's Gate 2, another huge one for me. Kind of got me back into gaming back in when I played it 13 years ago. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, played it. Hadn't been playing video games, got into that, was watching some YouTube videos about it, got obsessed with it, had never experienced a game with that many options. Character customization, I really got into all the different mods that you could get on the PC. The depth of the combat was really good. People these days are discovering the series with Baldur's Gate 3, and I mean, it's always been that good, pretty much. Baldur's Gate 3 takes it to another level, obviously, but it came from Baldur's Gate 2, and Baldur's Gate 2 kind of laid the groundwork for Dragon Age Origins. A lot of the same people who made Baldur's Gate 2 went on to make Dragon Age Origins, and as far as I know, the reason they made Dragon Age Origins in the first place was because of rights issues with the name Baldur's Gate. So they wanted to create a new franchise that they had total control over, total rights over. So without Baldur's Gate, we wouldn't have had Dragon Age Origins, we wouldn't have had Mass Effect, wouldn't have had a ton of the games that we have now. As well as Knights of the Old Republic, that was also part of the same team. Huge games that have really done a lot to shape modern gaming, and a lot of people don't realize what a big impact it had, I don't think. The last one I'll talk about is Hollow Knight. I talk about this one all the time. To me, Hollow Knight is a top 10 game of the last decade. I think it's incredible. To me, I probably would say it's a top 10 of all time, maybe even a top 5 for me personally. It's so extremely good. Every element of that game is so well done, so carefully constructed. It's practically a perfect game. I love how I've got a video that I made a long time ago just talking about the game, about how great I think it is. But the way that the combat works, it always feels fair when you lose. It never feels cheap. The difficulty level is a natural, real difficulty level based on the mechanics, not based on, oh, the enemy just hits way too hard and you have less health and you don't get better by just being able to do more damage. You can beat the whole game without any power-ups because it's all about the mechanics and learning the mechanics. And on top of that, the platforming sections in the game are also extremely good. It's maybe not quite up there with something like Celeste, but it's pretty god-darn close. It's so good. Every element of the game. The music is incredible, the world building, the customization with your different build, with all the different charms that you can get. It's just an amazing game. I put over 120 hours into it. Some people compare it to like a 2D Dark Souls. I know people compare everything to Dark Souls, but it really is pretty appropriate, I think, in this one to compare the two. Hollow Knight. Amazing game. I recommend it almost every day to someone who comes into the store. So that's it. That's my 5.
My top game has to be World of Warcraft. I went to every BlizzCon, starting from the first one until the first one in 2005 until like 2013 or so, and then I went to a couple again after that. One of them Muse played at, my favorite band. But so I started playing WoW in 2004. I think it was the Friends and Family Alpha or closed beta or something like that. And played it a lot. Endgame content rating leveled many characters to 60, and then I quit right as Cataclysm came out. I really loved Wrath. Came back for WoW Classic. Oh, and I've played exactly 1 day of WoW Hardcore last month. It was really fun, but I don't want to get sucked back in, so like a couple of friends made a pact for someone's birthday. 2 Hall. Okay, so 2 Hours, One Life is one of these survival video games. It's actually a fork of 1 Hour, One Life, but I like 2 Hall better. Your video game character, you get born in the world and your character lasts 2 hours. Every minute is 1 year in your life. So you end up dying at 120 years old. Your character just falls on the ground and dies, and you have to respawn. But you can like get your stuff again, so you can do stuff like persistently. There's another way to play the game where you get born as a baby to like some other random player, and you have no idea who you're gonna end up playing with. And I found that really fun. So what I love about games like this is the base building and like weirdly cooking. I don't cook at all in real life, but I will cook in video games a lot and like make a variety. Like what's important to me is like the variety of different food you can make. I got really into this game, really played it a lot. It was a big like time suck for me, so I'm not playing it now. Stardew Valley, I played a lot of Stardew Valley, also over the pandemic, but then remaining afterwards also. We had a small group of 3 that would play it every week. I just loved this game. I loved that it made headlines when it first came out for being one of the first games where you could date someone of any gender, like regardless of what gender you were. And like now that's like normal in games, but like when it came out, it was enough that I remember it. Like I remember articles being written about that. But I love the art. I got the cross stitch book. I have only ever made one thing from the cross stitch book. It's a chicken, and I got a chicken at PRGE. And then Insane Aquarium. So my friend George made this game, and it like really took off. And I am a tiny little part of it because once we were on the phone and he said, I need more pets in Insane Aquarium. Pets are like little friends that you can get, and you can pick 1 pet per level to like help you. Insane Aquarium is a game about feeding fish and shooting aliens. Self-explanatory, really. The fish like poop coins, and you click on the coin. It's like a clicking game, and like the screen fills up. It's really fun. He's really good at making like fun game loops. So anyway, he was like, when he was still building the game, he was like, hey, I need more ideas for pets. And I said, how about a scuba diving dog? And he laughed and said, what about a scuba diving elephant? And it like keeps trying to swim up, but it keeps sinking because it's so heavy. And then I was like, okay. And he was like, what should its name be? And I had taken a lot of American history classes, so I had like a history textbook whose like author was named Brinkley. So I was like, Brinkley! And so there is actually a scuba diving elephant named Brinkley in Insane Aquarium, and the joke is that this pet does literally nothing, like, so it's kind of a joke pet. But yeah, I'm very proud that I helped create Brinkley. He has a new game out as of like the 24th. It's called Hard Hat Wombat. And you're a little wombat. It's a puzzle game. It's not like Insane Aquarium or Plants vs. Zombies, really, but it's a simple 2D puzzle game, and you're a wombat and you poop cubes, which is what wombats do, poop cubes in real life. But anyway, you poop cubes and you like construct things with the cubes, and you solve little puzzles. Shameless plug. But anyway, check it out. It's on Steam. Yes, okay, finally, I just wanted to say Super Mario World, because like when I think about Super Mario World, or if I hear any of the music from Super Mario World at all, I just become happy. Like there's just something about this game that I love. Maybe it's because I was smaller when I first played it, or maybe it's because the graphics are so happy and wholesome. I just love this game. I love Yoshi's. I love like all the characters. I love the silly jokes at the end of when you explode the castles at the end of every world. Like my favorite one is when the castle like explodes or shoots off like a rocket ship and hits a hill in the background, and then a little bandage comes out on the hill, and then forever after that, if you look at that hill on the world map, there's like a little bandage there. I found that hilarious as a child, and I find that hilarious as an adult. So we love Super Mario World so much that our shower curtain at home is the Super Mario World like home with like all the baby Yoshis and like all the characters there. It's like pixel perfect. It's very beautiful. So those are my top 5.
Hi, I'm Raymond, and I'm going to be talking about some of the games on my list. And so the first one I have up is Mario Brothers. This is the original one that was on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and I played. It's what basically got me into Mario games, and I remember seeing a video recording of me standing in front of our couch playing Mario Brothers, and then with my sister next to me sitting on the floor, also reading the manual. So it's been a kind of a memory that I've always had and kept with me for this time. Mario RPG, that is a really fun game. I played it a little bit at my friend's house, and then I couldn't stop thinking about it because it was so fun. It's very quirky, but it also plays pretty well. I love the music too. Hiroshi made great soundtrack for it. Mario Kart. I love Mario Kart 64 because that one's the one where all the characters became, more like 3D, and racing around all the tracks was really exciting. And at that, I kind of have like what do you call it? A divider between like that. That's like where I last really enjoyed Mario Kart, because the ones after that, I think the games got a little too focused, have been a little too focused on items. But I guess that's always been the thing for Mario Kart, is all the items and chaos. It's a little too much for me now. So I'm still loving like the old ones like Mario Kart and 64. Another one that is on there is World of Warcraft, and basically I played since the original, or before it even released. My friend got us into, who worked at Blizzard, got us in for the Friends and Family beta. So it wasn't the open beta yet, and then so Judy and I had been playing it a lot, and since its release, and then I stopped around Wrath of the Lich King, so that would be around 2010, and then I didn't play all the expansions since then, and then I came back for Classic, and then I didn't really want the raid, but my sisters got me back in, and then we joined this great guild, and then I raided into the Burning Crusade Classic, and then I finally stopped right before the release of Wrath of the Lich King Classic, because I've had enough of that at that point. So yeah. Okay.
So we did a 5x5 thing, kind of participating in that, talking about some of my favorite games that I've played throughout the years. There was a big point in my life where I really wasn't playing many games, but and it kind of shows for my 5x5, to be honest. But I grew up on Nintendo a lot. I didn't really play a lot of PlayStation 2 at the time. Just PlayStation in general. I did have these consoles, but I just didn't have a lot of the games. Most of the games I've ever had were Nintendo. So if we're talking about my top 5, most of the games you'll hear are just Nintendo-based games. But let me just start off by saying I think one of the top games on my list for sure is Super Mario Galaxy. I played that when it first came out, and I probably beat it 4 or 5 times. And I played it on the Switch, I played it on the Wii, and it's probably, I think, one of the best games Nintendo's ever really put out. Really ambitious. They were obviously trying to show what you can do with the Wii remote and things you can do, and I think the whole thing about it being in a galaxy was kind of Nintendo showing like the expanses of what the Wii can do, you know, and I thought it was a great game. Obviously, there's some problems with, I think, the controller and the motion controls, but I think with the Switch port, it kind of helps alleviate some of that. There's like the whole thing with the star bits, but I think just as a game holistically, it is probably one of my favorite games I go back to all the time. And I do like Super Mario Galaxy 2, but I prefer one more. So definitely one of the ones I go to for sure. And probably one of my other favorite games for sure is Kirby Superstar Ultra. I would definitely put it on my like top 3 DS games of all time that I've ever played. And DS is like the main console I collect for. It was one of the games I first got when I was first collecting. It was there's something about that game. I really like Superstar, like Kirby Superstar on the Super Nintendo, but Ultra I think holistically just kind of makes everything better. From the bosses, you can play as Meta Knight in Superstar Ultra, which they did not have in the first one. I feel like everything graphically too was just enhanced, and I really like the Super Nintendo one, but I think the DS just kind of puts icing on the cake for me. It's definitely like one of the best games you can play on a DS, I think, and it kind of and that game alone kind of showcased for me why I like the DS so much. So that was great for me. I think another one too. So I'm also really into party games. If I had to put one of them at the top though, it would probably be Castle Crashers. I kind of grew up on Newgrounds, so Newgrounds for me was a huge thing.
This shows.
Hello? This guy doesn't help. Yeah, this guy is not helping here. I kind of grew up on Newgrounds. I was a really big fan of Behemoth, and they put out Castle Crashers, and I put so many countless hours. I mean, I have YouTube videos of it even now. That are probably hidden on like somewhere on the internet, but yeah, Castle Crashers is probably one of my favorite party games in that regard. Probably if we're talking RPGs, probably my favorite that I played so far and beat was Xenoblade Chronicles. It's really good, and I really like the whole direction with it. It is kind of an insane thing that game came out on the Wii. But that definitive edition that what I've played is so unique. I think as an RPG, it's so fun to play. I like turn-based combat. I can get behind it. I think sometimes it can be like really monotone and just in its direction and gameplay. But that game is totally not like that. It's very like entertaining. It's really engaging, and the story behind it is really incredible. If I had to name one more game, I think, just because I'm a huge fan of story games as well, if we're talking like visual novel-esque, I think 999, 9 Persons, 9 Hours, 9 Doors is also probably going to be up the top of my list. I've thought about this game a lot, and especially recently, and I've recently just beat the sequel to it. I think what makes it stand out so much is just quite literally the story. The gameplay for me is kind of its weakest point. Not really into the gameplay, and it doesn't really stick with me because it's kind of like an escape room type puzzle for the gameplay. But the story is really well done, and there was obviously a lot of thought being put into it. And it's not just throwing these random concepts and these random ideas out there into the ether. Even though they're like kind of like some made up things that kind of go on in the game, there's at least an explanation behind everything, which I really do appreciate. And I think it's just a really rounded game. I think it kind of suffers from, you can't really go back to it per se, but I still think the twists and the turns are really well worth your time, and it's a game that doesn't disappoint. It also came out on the DS, which I think kind of goes to show how much I played a lot on the DS, but it's also come out on so many different consoles. There's so many ways to play it, and I think each and every way to experience the game is also great, but I do think the DS way is the best way to experience it. Has one of the best endings in any game I've ever played, so definitely check that out. But yeah, some of my favorite games, I think we posted our 5x5, and so that's probably it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm talking about my top 5 games, maybe the top 25. So my first pick is Melee, or Super Smash Bros. Melee. I had played this game for almost 5 years, starting in like middle school up until high school, because I got into it competitively, and it had me start my own Smash Club in school, and we held like tournaments and stuff, and that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I didn't compete in a lot of tournaments just because of anxiety, but I would play a lot at home and with friends. My second choice is Hollow Knight, which I actually played this year, and I put in a lot of hours, more than I thought I would, and it was a really enjoyable game. A lot of things in it, like the art, music, even the gameplay, all like really left a big impression on me, and even like inspired me to hopefully make my own game one day. And also like playing it, I was motivated enough to attempt speedrunning it. Like I've watched multiple videos of people like speedrunning it, and it seems pretty easy, especially since like after playing it for a while, I barely struggled with a lot of bosses. So I feel like it's a thing I would like to attempt sometime in the future. My third choice is Valhalla, which is like a visual novel type game. This game, also a lot of good artwork and music, but this one is probably in my top 5 just because I played it during a very vulnerable part of my life. Like I was extremely depressed, and there's just like things I could relate to in a way. So it's kind of like my comfort game. My fourth choice is Final Fantasy XIV. This is also a game where I played during my peak depression era. I made a lot of friends in this game. It's still one of my top favorite games. My fifth choice was Monster Hunter World. It was my first Monster Hunter game, and I enjoyed it a lot. I know it's a lot different from like older games, but it is what got me into the franchise, and it's probably one of my favorite franchises out of every other game. I'm sure Brittany's gonna put my top 25 picture, but all the other games,
that was me putting it there.
yeah, all the other games that are on there, I've just like really enjoyed it. Art and music is a big thing for me. Basically everything else in my list is like something where I had based my personality off of, which is why they're on my list. Yeah, my top games.
Hi. So, how do you say this? There's a lot of games in that list that I actually really like, but I'm going to talk about 5 of them, but it's hard to pick 5 of them because all these are so good. So I'm going to start with Umihara Kawase. It's a 2D platformer on the Super Nintendo, and then there was a sequel on the PlayStation called Umihara Kawase Shun. And it's a game where essentially you're in this dream world, and you have to try and make your way through the levels. And the cool mechanic of it is that you get this fishing hook that you get to hook up, or you get to throw at walls and ceilings and stuff. And you get to use physics to try and like swing back and forth between platforms and stuff. It's really cool. Let's see, what's another one on the list? Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. That was one of the very first VR games I played on the Valve Index. And it's a gun simulator. I think guns are cool. And you get to spawn all kinds of guns and weapons, and you get to just run around and just kind of mess with stuff and have fun. There's even like a little shooting range where you get to shoot bottles and watermelons and just throw grenades and accidentally bump your hand into the bookshelf, and then you can't play VR for a couple of days, but it's fine. Here, Sonic CD, I've played that one 20 times now. It's probably my favorite Sonic game just because of the soundtrack. You have the Japanese soundtrack and the American soundtrack, because the soundtrack between the two regions are different. So you have this like very dance music-y Japanese soundtrack, and then with the American soundtrack they did a lot more of synthesizers and guitars and a lot more sort of Western instrumentation, I guess you would say. Both soundtracks are great. People like to argue about it on the internet because the internet will argue about anything. Phantasy Star Online 2. For the longest time, that wasn't ever released in the West. It was originally announced to release in the West in 2012. I don't think we saw it until 2020. And within the time that the game was announced in 2012, and when it came out in 2020, my friend went to the military, came back, stopped playing video games, so he and I played Phantasy Star Online 2 never really happened. So that's a bit of an interesting little thing there. But as soon as that game came out in the West, I played so much of it. And then New Genesis happened, and we don't talk about New Genesis because it's not that good. Fifth game I'm going to talk about is Battlefield 2. So that game originally came out on PC in 2005, and I really like the Battlefield series a lot. Battlefield 2 was the first one I started playing. And the reason I started playing that one's because around 2009-ish, when Battlefield Bad Company 2 was the newest game around, I didn't have a powerful enough computer to play Bad Company 2, so I went back and played Battlefield 2. And remembering the stupid shit I pulled off in that game is hilarious, because essentially you get a giant map, and there's different game modes, but I'm going to talk about Conquest for now, which is one of the main game modes. So you have different flags on the map, and the objective is you have two battling teams, and you're trying to essentially gain conquest over the map. You're trying to gain territory control. So you have different points over the map, points of interest, and you're trying to capture them from the enemy team. But the way you capture it is by staying in the capture zone for long enough to turn the flag red or blue, depending on which team you're on, essentially. But what's cool is that you have tanks and jets and rocket launchers and guns, and you can do all kinds of stupid things like, I have a jet, I'm gonna ram it into a tank. Or I have a jet. Or in Battlefield 2, they had two-person jets. So you can have one person be the pilot, the other person's the gunner. You're just flying around the map, dominating people. Or you're in a tank and you see a jet fly by and you think, I'm gonna shoot that jet out of the sky, and you fire and you hope to God it hits. Or you can be, I believe one of the classes in Battlefield 2 are special forces, and you got the C4, so you can sneak up behind a tank, throw explosive on it, and just run away and blow it up and hope to God no one sees you do it. But yeah, those are 5 games off of the top 25 games in my list that I just adore and love to bits.
Hey, so I've been asked to talk about my top games. So if any of y'all saw my list, I did have Mario 3 and Final Fantasy Tactics on there for the PSP. Those games should be flipped around. The only thing is that Tactics on PSP, legit my favorite game. It's such a huge build on the PS1 version that honestly you really can't go back to it, even though I have an appreciation for the first one. Mario 3 was also my favorite. It's my first game ever played. I remember I was a little kid and I would watch my family play this game almost religiously. And I got into it. I've beaten this game probably 3 times this year. And let's see, we have Minish Cap, the Legend of Zelda Minish Cap on Game Boy Advance, arguably my favorite Legend of Zelda game. The art on it is like fantastic. The story paces just right to the point where you know exactly what you're doing every single time that you boot back up. So honestly, there's no getting lost in that game. Then there's like Metal Gear Solid 3 on PS2, my favorite Metal Gear Solid game. I love espionage and like sneaking around and making sure that the enemy doesn't see me. And Metal Gear Solid 3, it has all of that really well, and the dialogue is actually really funny. So, and it's a good installment in the series. I love Big Boss. He's the dopest character in video games. Don't at me. He's great. And I think the last one I want to talk about is Capcom vs. SNK 2. I'll play that game forever. No comment. Thank you.